Easy, how are we?
Johnny, not bad. Well, I'm doing a lot better than a lot of people who are out running in that weather all night.
Are you though?
Yeah, I don't
You
know.
feel
It's
comfy. You got a good night's sleep anyway. You got a good night's sleep.
But
You were down there yesterday
I have to
in League
say,
Sip.
the buzz was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I just the calmness. Like, you're looking at people about to run for 24 hours. And it's just so calm. It's just like, yeah, all right, here we go. It's absolutely amazing to watch. It was the start of the 24, 12-hour, 6-hour, and also the marathon in Lecaila Athletics Club down in Leixlip. You've done it before, or at least been down there before. I hadn't been, but it's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, no, it's great. I did 5-6 hours there a couple of years ago. I was building back towards a backyard ultra, so I just need to get a few hours down there. But it's a great buzz, and to your point, like you don't want to be hyped for a 24-hour race. You don't want the energy up there listening to Rocky and all the rest. You need to be calm and ease into that thing. Otherwise, you will burn out like it. But I can only imagine the nerves deep down to go, right, I'm going for a long night, and was it a windy day?
It was windy. Yeah, it was windy, and it kind of split the track. I did a couple of laps with a few people just to try and burn them out with conversation good and early.
You didn't bring the mics and go, we could have got a podcast episode out of instead of this intro between us.
I got some abuse every lap saying, Jesus, are you doing a podcast out there with people? I was talking to everyone. But I was having a good catch up with people, and it's, it was kind of like every 200 meters, headwind, tailwind. You could, it was very much split in two. How it progressed through the day and night, I'm not too certain, because I tipped on. After I made an appearance for about 40 minutes, I said, right, that's enough for me. Best of luck to the rest of you. My permission slip only extended me up until 1 o'clock, so that was but yeah, no, it was really, really enjoyable to get out running again with a few people and to be a part of it without the pressure of, to just go and see people and have a jog with them and to have a bit of a run with people who have been guests, previous guests, other people who haven't been, and even some of the regular listeners. Like Emer is one of the ladies who was doing the 12-hour, and I ended up doing a couple of laps with herself as well, and getting to find out she listens every Monday. And and even for her, she's like, I've heard all of these names and I'm seeing all these faces who are real elites in this sport, and she's on the same track as them. It's just fantastic to see. So big shout out as well to Anto and Mark for all the abuse. It was a fantastic event again, and to see. Now, I didn't see it through the night, so I'm not there to tell the tales, but there is something cool about it. As I've seen you do backyards, I've seen that there's a certain buzz about it that I love, but some phenomenal past guests doing some great work, Sean.
Speaking of past guests and speaking of abuse, last week Mick Hollows was showing a bit of abuse on you about running and all the rest, and he was out there doing a 6-hour, and we had a reel up this week about a clip from that episode, and we called him out in the podcast like we do. It was like, well, you're on the spot now, what are you going to do? And he said he hoped for north of 70, and then Kevin English's coach put in the comments 3-4 days ago, was like, 72 is the goal. You're going for 72. And lo and behold, I had a look on it on Saturday night, and the man pulled it off. 72 kilometres in 6 hours and took the top spot. So congrats to Mick and Kev on that one.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. I tried to slow him down for 2 laps, and I think he told me. I think he told me to fuck off after that. But yeah, he was looking very comfortable. But it was absolutely phenomenal. Really, really great to see and catch up with the lads from the North Clondalkin group as well, who were there to support and having a great time. And Jer and Matt taking on the marathon as well in their glorious AGR gear. They were getting lots of abuse for being podcast sponsors, I think they're calling them now. But it's and I also got lots of abuse off Jer, which was good. Regular occurrence. I give it as good as I get, though. It's not it's not a one-way street. I just can't repeat some of the things I say on this episode.
Please don't be our last episode we ever record if you do that. So I do every time you bring up Jer Copeland's name, I knowing the guy and the abuse and hearing the abuse he throws and hearing the abuse you throw, I clench a little because I'm like, don't mention what you guys say in the podcast. I know we have that unrated thing at the odd time popping up, but the explicit thing, but it's at the same time, you won't get away with it.
Yeah, look, and it was really good, and I got to meet Fozzie there as well, and Fozzie was taking on the 24-hour. I just seen another AGR hat in the crowd. I was like, isn't that brilliant? I didn't even, I was a little bit raised, and I was like, I didn't even have to be here. Look, the advertisement's already in play, look. So yeah, I again, fantastic running by a lot of fantastic athletes. Niamh, I ran a couple of laps with Niamh Fitzpatrick as well, a former guest of the podcast, who was just off the back of Elevation, 21 hours, Sean, was it last week?
I think she did 21 hours. She was a top female last week doing Elevation, which was
and came out then with 180 something kilometers. Just finished as we record only 25 minutes ago. So phenomenal. The lead female, Sean, I think you have the details of who pivoted 2-3 kilometers.
I think Lorraine McMahon would have got. I think she's at Wexford Running Club. Because she's
and there was a good few from the Wexford Run Club as well. So well done to them. I didn't get talking to them. They were in the zone, and I was like, okay, I can't really ruin their day. I knew who I could have used early doors, so I stuck to that. But yeah, it was cute. It was a great turnout for a 24-hour race, and great to see so many people and former guests as well, and just really enjoying the day. I'd say a few hours later when I wasn't there, I wouldn't say they were enjoying the day so much, but it was but still great to see everyone in great form and another great event.
You were talking about backyard ultras and stuff like that. Last week was the Elevation I've done before that Niamh did last week, and myself and yourself were over in Portugal there instead. And Wayne McGuigan, who I've told him in person, said he's not going on to the podcast that he ends up doing Tennessee, because that man is from what I can see right now, because Keith Russell hasn't done him in a while, he's a top guy in the country. He should be representing Ireland over there. I don't know how that thing works, but he did 36 hours, and Tom and PJ, who run that event, absolutely phenomenal. Great crack down there. Wish I could have been there. No, my body doesn't wish I could have been there. My heart and my mind too. My body's like, no, I'm not ready to deal with that.
I was quite happy in Portugal, Sean.
So I was happy chilling there in 22, 23 degree weather, and me and you doing our little 3-4K run and a couple of little calisthenics pull-ups by the beach was nice. Was nice to do. We actually did a small bit of training over there. But to get back to Tom and PJ themselves and Fozzie, who you just mentioned there, they're doing a run now in a couple of months' time. It's called Forever 19, and Fozzie's son was tragically killed last August, and they're raising money in Cork, trying to help the family out and stuff was there. So the three of them are doing 400 kilometres. I had a look at the map. I can't even name half the places, but 400 kilometres all around. It just seems all around Munster for that to do it over a couple of days. So we're going to have the links down in the show notes if you guys can, support or show your support in any which way, as long as their Instagram and everything else that goes with it. The guys are great down there with Elevation. I've seen Fozzie a few times, a few of the backyards, and that kind of community stuff. It kind of ties in a lot with Leaks at the 24-hour. It is pretty cool. You got to experience that as well on Saturday.
Yeah, just happy it was only for 45 minutes.
You could have stretched at least for the first hour. Here, I'm going to call you out on it though. You went to physio afterwards.
I did. I went straight there. That was, it's sore. But it should be good enough. We are back this week. I was told I had to do nothing, which was nice. When you're prescribed to do it, it actually took the pressure off me. I was like, no, told to do nothing and eat cake. So I did do that little run yesterday, and I tied in my own. It's just kind of testing where it was sore, when it was sore, and it was actually quite okay. There's a few little points, because I was trying to keep up with Yer and Matt when they came past me after 2 laps, so I nearly picked the nearest ditch over the fence. So we used them as kind of an interval kind of training, and then I'd jump in with some few to get some recovery and try and slow them down, and then I'd go again. But yeah, it's looking good for back to training this week. Yeah. So all is good. It's definitely, and going back to the conversation when we seen the image of me running. All the left side there was so much, and there's been so much needle. But more importantly, I give a shout out to Renan. He was my massage therapist yesterday.
Ah, poor bastard.
Yeah. But he likes inflicting pain on me, which is fantastic.
Okay.
But I have to say, he is gifted. That it's not even. It's not the, you know, when you go the regular and they just follow the works, they start here and they move down there. It's like, where's sore? And then it's like, yeah. And then he'll hit somewhere else. What about here? Oh my God. You know, like he works through it. Sister, we actually ran out of time. There was that much else going on. It was absolutely phenomenal. And I have to say, I've been using them for years. Well, I haven't in the last few, and hence the problem. But from the physio check and then going to actually get a massage, you know, because physio is fantastic and they give you the exercises and we're getting there and the dry needle and everything else. But then getting an actual massage where, because we know we're supposed to be on the foam roller and we know we're supposed to do all that. But to lie there and actually get the physical, I actually think it's the best. We'll call it laziness, call it whatever, but when you can actually get in at trigger points, and because even when you're doing it yourself with a massage gun, you're not really.
The same.
You're not really. But Renan, in fairness, he has two clinics. One is in the physio centre in Clonee and one is in Blanchardstown. But if anyone is looking for a deep tissue sports massage, not a wishy-washy massage, one of these proper ones. There. Oh, Sean, but he says it himself, yeah, because I've been away. He's like, it's been 2.5, 3 years. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I can tell. And then it hit the next point. But like, I honestly think it's like servicing the car, because I neglect a lot of it myself. But I have to say, yeah, it's great to have that element back in the recovery part of it. So it was nice. It wasn't nice. It wasn't nice, but it was nice, if that makes sense. Slept like a log last night. It was absolutely amazing. Yeah, but it was a nice session. But what it means is it's all part of getting back this week. So back on the bike, back swimming, back. Running is actually going to be the lesser. There might only be maybe 3 runs this week, and we'll focus on the other stuff just because it's not 100% yet, but it'll be a few easy 5Ks plus cycling, swimming, and then the week after then it can be opened up a little bit.
Brilliant. I'm agreeing with you and nodding along, but I'm also doing none of these things. But I do think, because I know there's enough listeners going, man, he's been a hypocrite agreeing. But I do agree, like the NCT kind of going in, getting it done and just seeing where the body's at, especially someone that's been with you for quite a while. They're like, oh, new injury here, or this isn't right, and that knows you well enough that way. So best of luck and stuff to training. But I tell you, this week in the podcast, I've got a little bit of, I want to say hope. A little bit in this week's podcast. Hope.
That's a dangerous
little
word.
bit. It's a very dangerous word in terms of maybe, Eric, I'm getting on, I suppose. And people are like, no, you're not getting on. But as you age, it's harder to get these distances. And there's a lot of different elements in our next guest story. But one of them is, as they've gotten older, and because they bring up the podcast into their 40s and 50s, at 53, they got their marathon PB. And there are times that I would aspire. I don't even too sure I use aspire because it seems beyond aspire to what I could get to. So I'm like, ooh, maybe there is a little bit of hope in this week's episode of the Any Given Monday podcast.
Yeah, it is a great one. It's one that, and it is exactly that. It's age is just a number when it comes to running, and in actual fact, when people say endurance is a mature sport, is very much comes to light in this one. And it's great for those who may only be getting into running, or those who are worried that, maybe I'm getting a bit too old for this crack. This one knocks it on its head. That's it. We're tied in now. So I have no excuse. But a great episode, another good listen, and another great week of the Any Given Run Day podcast.
And with that said, it's this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. Let's go. Our next guest on the Any Given Run Day podcast is a sub 3-hour marathon runner, along with running over 40 marathons. He's also a running coach, and he's also the author of the book, A Heart for Running, How Running Saved My Life. John McDonnell, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. How are you getting on?
I'm the best, thanks. Thanks for having me.
John, usually I start by asking, how did you get into running? But apparently it saved your life. Do we start there, or does the story entail a sport go back further than that?
Yeah, it goes back further than that. I got into running. So I've always been kind of sporty, played ice hockey and baseball because I was born in America and I lived my first 32 years there. And that's more likely what you're going to get into in New England area. So, was sporty enough, fairly athletic, found my mid-20s, found beer and cigarettes and all kinds of good things in my mid-20s and 30s. So woke up in my early 40s and I was overweight, out of shape, felt awful, bad knees or back. And I needed to drop some weight. I took a real hard look at my nutrition and that kind of thing. And at that point, around 2010, I started running as a part of a weight loss journey. And yeah, that was it.
Right, Eric, let me ask you this one thing. What is your number one recovery tip before a long run?
Besides not stretching, I always cheat and reach for Ultra Pure Wintergreen Heat Rub Cream.
Oh yeah, that's actually really good. You know, it's perfect for tight muscles before you hit the road. All you have to do is just massage into your calves, your hamstrings, even your shoulders, and you'll feel that heat kick in straight away.
By the way your body is, Sean, you're definitely buying this stuff in litres. But it delivers fast-acting, non-greasy, targeted warmth right where you need it most. And it's not just about the heat, Sean. It combines wintergreen, rosemary oil, juniper berry, and caffeine powder.
So when you're feeling tight, aching, or just ready for your next run, Ultra Pure Wintergreen Heat Rub Cream is a must-have addition to your warmth routine.
Trust us, your legs will thank you, and it's easy to carry in your sports bag.
Elevate your everyday with Ultra Pure.
Shop online now at ultrapurelabs.ie or find it in your local pharmacy or health store. By listening to this advert, you are supporting Irish businesses and this podcast. Let's get back to the episode. It can be daunting. Well, first of all, the realization, acceptance of the situation you're in is usually when people start to notice or be able to implement a bit of a change. How difficult was it for you to accept where you are, or did you seek any guidance? No, we always say running now, we are not surprised at how many people are picking up running. But if you go back to 2010, running was not as popular unless you were in an athletics club, and, you know, understanding running to lose weight, it was always difficult. I even hated it. What was available to you in terms of help, resources, and what were the conversations you had with yourself to go, we need to change, and these are the first steps I'm going to take?
Yeah, great question. I got back. So I have a wife and 4 kids. At that time, you know, school kids, and you know, we're all grown up. And we were on holiday back in the States, back in Boston, and you know, we had a great time. But we got home, and all of a sudden, we're looking at some of the pictures we took. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell happened to me? Right? It was just, that's not the guy that I was, and or what I was expecting to see. So it was there and then. It was just obvious to me that I had to do something. At that point, I started kind of looking at my nutrition, what I was eating more than anything, and then I said, you know, I needed to move more. And you know, that's an exercise. I think anybody that doesn't track what they're consuming in the course of a day, you know, you don't have to do it for, you know, the rest of your life. If you just look right down what you're eating over the course of a day, you know, that is eye-opening, right? And for me, just getting that kind of grasp of what I was consuming opened my eyes. And then I said, right, I need to move more, eat less, move more. I mean, it's such a popular cliche now, right? But at the time, you know, I just kind of figured that out on my own. We didn't have Instagram and, you know, all these other things. So took myself up. My wife actually had started running. Somebody had coaxed her into doing a leg of the Belfast Relay. So she started running, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe she's, you know, running 2, 3, 4 miles at a whack. So I decided, right, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to go up into the forestry, get off the roads. Nobody's going to see me. You know, I wasn't comfortable in my own skin, right? And I think that's a real popular thing, or not popular, but a common thing that a lot of people, you know, I'm not a real runner. You know, people are going to say something to me. So I was like that. I was like everybody else, and it's went up into the forestry. We have a 2.3 mile loop around Jenkin Lakes. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Fermanagh, but we're blessed with forestry roads and fantastic scenery, and it's just a great place to run for anybody that wants to start. So I would go up there, and I'd get about 200 meters, and I would just crash. Is it? I'm like, day after day or week after week, I'd be up there crashing at 200 meters. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? And then one time it just clicked. I said, you know what? I'm just going to slow it down and just see what happens if I just go slow, right? And it was like maybe just a little bit faster than a brisk walk. And all of a sudden, I'm around the 2.3 mile loop. I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. And that's just where it all kicked off.
A lot of people, when I'll use my sister as an example, she was trying to get up to a 5K last year, and like that, going out best effort, and would be relatively fit, but it just kept, she kept finding it really, really difficult to achieve, and felt like something until we slowed down. Now, she was almost embarrassed with how slow we were going, and I was like, oh, this is magic. I was so happy to be just chilled out, having a conversation. But you obviously had the luxury of being away from other people. So some people listening are like, oh yeah, but I couldn't do that around my town. For that same reason we talked about, that little bit of, I'm not a runner, I can't be seen to shuffle along like I'm struggling. And did you find that being away and having a dedicated space that was probably out of public view, we'll call it, easier to go, hey, let's just slow down, let's just go for a long walk?
Probably. Yeah, I'd say that for me, mentally, I think that's probably a real good description of what it was like. In hindsight, I know now that people, other runners are going to see somebody who's out of shape just starting to run, and they'll applaud, and they'll be like, that's fantastic, that's motivating, that's inspirational. And I always tell people, it's only the people, or I shouldn't say that, it's nobody better than you is going to criticize you, right? It's those, the guys driving down the road, happen to have something to say out the window. It doesn't happen often, but those are the people that would never be out putting in an effort. You know what I mean?
John, did the first race after this 2.3 mile loop you did and stuff like that, was it like, okay, I'm ready to start signing for races and marathons, or how? I somehow is that what happened? You're like, right, how far can I take this? Is that just you got the bug straight away and start signing for races?
Yeah. So we signed up. There's a Clonus 5K. Clonus is a small town up in Monaghan, or down in Monaghan, depending on where you are. And they had a 5K, so it's local to us. We said, we'll go give it a shot. And I remember clear as day, I'm wearing a white cotton t-shirt, these big, long, baggy cotton shorts. I don't even know if they were proper running shoes. Cotton socks, these big, tall cotton socks. And I'm looking around, I'm like, oh my God, I thought I could run, right? You see all these guys with their club vests on. And that was a real eye-opener. But my wife and I both did that together, and we finished the race, and it was horrible. It was really, really tough, right? But we got to the finish line, and we're like, it didn't take 2 minutes, and we're like, Jesus, look what we just did, right? It was such, you talk about the runner's high and you hear it all the time, but it was amazing, that feeling of actually doing it, right? And we didn't know any other runners, so we just kind of did our own thing. So yeah, it was fantastic. And then from there, we literally did 5K, 10K, half, and then marathon was after that. Yeah.
Oh wow! What was the first marathon?
So we were both training for Belfast in 2013, and I felt I was ready, and I kind of wanted to test it. So I got on the internet and I was searching around, and I found the 100 Marathon Club in Ireland, and they had a marathon going on in 6 Mile Bridge. So I'm like, all right, we'll give it a shot. I contacted them. They said, yeah, come on down. So spent the night in Clare, and managed that one. And I have to say, as you can imagine, the 100 Marathon Club is full of really enthusiastic marathon runners, right? And, just so sociable and welcoming and supportive. You couldn't have asked for a better environment for something like that.
And was this your first marathon in training, was with these?
Yeah. So we did that, and then it's not funny. It was actually tragic, but my brother and sister-in-law were running Boston that year.
2013.
2013.
Okay.
And they got to mile, I think, 24. They were at mile 18 when the bombs went off. They got to mile 24 before everything was just closed off. Everything, by that time they just said, no, that's it, course closed, get out and go away. So that was April, and Belfast was in May. So we're like, you didn't really get to finish. Come on over and we'll run Belfast together. So there's a fantastic photo of the four of us arm in arm crossing the finish line in Belfast. So, yeah.
Wow.
With all that you'd been through and as sad as that was, it did obviously create a silver lining. Did you imagine you could be standing with your family at the finish line of a marathon? Was that something you had envisaged, or was this something that you crossed? Because a lot of people have, we always say, a reason to run, and you were running from a past life and trying to change, but to stand there at a finish line, was that emotional? Because a lot of people have emotional marathons, but was that to you a milestone in the life where you said, look, we have really changed the lifestyle here, and look where I am and look who I'm with?
Absolutely. No question about it. I always tell the people that I coach, anyone who's running their first marathon, it's transformational, right? It is absolutely will change your life. It just opens up doors of self-belief and confidence in these things that a lot of us just didn't have before we found running, right? And when you cross the finish line in a marathon, especially something as kind of emotional as 2013 was, and I have to say the support of the people of Boston around the Belfast course was amazing. It really was amazing. We were wearing Boston Strong t-shirts, right? And just the outpouring of support was fantastic.
Wow. Didn't expect it to turn that way. And that one where you said 2013 in New England area, I'm like, was this going around this time? You're going for Boston for your first one? That is absolutely. When you were following your not to get too that much into that, but when you were following them, were you following them that day? Were you doing your own thing that day when that all kicked off? Because I still remember sitting at home and just seeing it on American news channels, just being like, what the hell's going on over there?
Yeah.
Obviously, it was nighttime here when that happened.
It was scary. So we were tracking them, and I had to stop tracking and take my boys to jiu-jitsu. And so I pull into the parking lot and my phone rings, and it was my mother, I think. And my mother would never ring from Boston. I'm like, what's happening? She's like, did you see the news? Have you heard any news? Have you heard from Kevin? And I'm like, no, haven't heard anything. And why? What's going on? And she's like, something happened at the finish line in Boston. We haven't heard anything. So it was like, yeah, there was cell phone was shut down, right? The whole network was shut down. There was, it was probably about an hour and a half after that we got word that they were safe and we were kind of just roaming about. But yeah, scary stuff.
Scary time. So I suppose when you look at that and when everything very quickly gets put back into perspective, like life has a fantastic way of putting what's important back into perspective. How easy was a marathon then after that? Because obviously you've gone on to do many more. So that perspective of Belfast, it was a nice, enjoyable run.
It was not fast. It was sociable. We enjoyed it, and we my brother and I don't know how many people could stand being in the same room as the two of us, because we kind of speak our own language, right? And we can go off on these wild tangents. and just laugh our asses off for hours, and nobody will have a clue what we're talking about. So we had 26 miles of that, right? So it was good. Yeah, it was really, really fun. And yeah, after that, I suppose the first two experiences were special for me, and probably had an impetus for what happened, or for my enjoyment of the sport, and especially the endurance and the marathon as a distance. Yeah.
So people either go faster or go longer. Which road did you go, John?
Hydration is key to fueling endurance performance.
Perform Nutrition's Electrolytes Plus sachets have been specifically designed to fill the need for advanced hydration for athletes.
With 1,000 milligrams sodium, all essential electrolytes, and 2,500 milligram performance blend made up of glutamine, taurine, and coconut water powder, one sachet will replenish and revitalize your hydration.
Using natural flavors, natural colors, no added sugar, and no added fillers, each sachet has a sweet and lightly salted fruity flavor and comes in either mixed berry or citrus.
Informed, sport tested, and trusted by Olympians such as Kate O'Connor, world champion boxer Aoife O'Rourke, and pro triathlete Nikki Bartlett, and many more elite athletes.
Trust Perform to fuel your excellence, and by listening to this advert, you are supporting Irish businesses and this podcast. Now let's get back to the episode.
I kept pushing. I really kept pushing, but not because I necessarily wanted to get faster. I did, obviously. Later that year, in June, my wife and we ran Cork, because we ran kind of Belfast as a sociable run, and we said, right, let's see what we can do. And we ran Cork. And after Cork, I joined the Enniskillen Running Club, which I have to say was probably the best decision I ever made in my life. It was just being surrounded by people who did push you on, and knew a whole lot more about the sport than I did. Proper coach. Just having moved over, so I would have lived. This is 2013. I had moved over in 2001, so 12 years. Didn't really know many people, which is kind of strange, but I just didn't. I worked remotely for AIG down in Dublin for first 4 or 5 years, and then just didn't have much of a social life outside of my wife's family. And joining the club was an amazing thing, but what that did was all of a sudden people knew, all right, he's from Boston, right? Let's have a look. Maybe we could put a group together and go do Boston Marathon. So there's a whole
language. It made it easier.
yeah, exactly. And so in 2014, we decided, right, let's think about qualifying for Boston. And so I kind of had to work on speed as opposed to just building up the distance. Although I do like a nice 50K now and again, but it was really that kind of forced me to look at pace and finishing a little bit faster. Yeah.
And at this stage then, John, where this goal of the sub 3 hour marathon starts to creep in now, hanging around these people now, Skilling Run Club and all the rest?
So the goal of sub 3 never crossed my mind until about 2016. Yeah, about 2016. So I eventually got myself down to about, I think it was, I ran Boston in 2015.
Oh wow, you ran Boston.
I didn't get in no, sorry, I didn't get in 2015. I got in 2016.
Right.
That's a really long story, and we could probably spend 2 hours just talking about my chasing of the BQ in 2014. I actually did end up running. I needed sub 325. I ran 324.30
Oh,
2
wow.
or something. I missed the cutoff by 30 seconds, right? It was absolutely heartbreaking because 7 other people from Enniskillen did get the qualifying time. They got in. So we all
And
went
they
over
left you at
anyway.
home and went it off
No,
to
no, no.
Boston without you? Here, John.
No. I got over.
They needed a translator. They brought him.
Yeah. Yeah. So I ended up, that was a disappointment, but I didn't qualify for 16, and I went over on my own and did that, which was fantastic. Still an amazing experience. And I had a much better weather that day. So yeah. But that chase for the BQ, I ran 6 marathons that year, I think, and 4 of them within a couple of months, just trying to chase that down. And it worked out really well with the club mates, pacing and all this stuff. So it was a fantastic experience. Yeah.
John, a lot of people like you, they remember the feeling of the qualification. Some people have showed up on day one and have made qualification, but the disappointments along the way. What were your lessons learned when you'd show up to a marathon and miss out by a couple of minutes? Would you get a couple of minutes closer? What was that journey?
Yeah.
Because you've talked about a lot of marathons in the chase, but there has to be a lot of a struggle, mental battle, commitment just to get there.
Big time. Oh man, I tell you. So each one. So what was it? We did. Longford was the one that I qualified at, but I ran Waterford, which I collapsed at the finish. I think it was 3:27, and my wife saw me coming across the finish line, and she turned away for a second, and then I was gone. Right. I spent 2 hours in the medical tent after that one. And I also ran, I can't think off the top of my head, but it was each one was like, I think Derry was one of them. Yeah, Derry was one, which was a fantastic marathon that they don't run anymore. That was just phenomenal, but I didn't get it there. But each one I got about maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes off, and I was getting closer and closer and closer. Like Waterford was brutal because it was 3:27. I need 3:25. It was one of those days. It got up to, I think, about 26 degrees.
Oh,
And
no.
you're heading out to Tremor Beach, and it's just like there's no shade anywhere. You're just exposed under the sun. It was now I would take a 26-degree marathon any day over a 0-degree marathon, but at the time I wouldn't know. Yeah, it was some chase. No, there were some real disappointments. That one in Waterford, fantastic race. I really enjoyed it, but the 2 hours in the medical tent was brutal.
And then lacing up at the start of Longford, did you feel like on that day that this is my day? Did you get to 30K and go, do you know, I think we're on here? At what moment? Or was it a fight to the finish?
We had, now this is probably cheating, and in a proper marathon, it probably wouldn't be allowed. But we had,
and if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
That's it, exactly. But we had four guys pacing me, right? And they kind of swapped in and out as we went, and just, this is the epitome of support from a club, right? Each one was amazing. Rory did the first few miles, and he's just like steady as a rock, right? And then Brian was like 17 miles. Sorry, there were 3 pacers, and then Eamon Monaghan he's a coach up in Enniskillen now. He coaches the juniors. Fantastic guy, fantastic runner as well. And he took me home for the last like 4 or 5 miles, something, whatever that works out at. And Eamon was taking no shit on the day. He was like, I'm going. He's like, he got in front of me and he was taking the wind for me, right? And I kind of just tucked in, and like he was going at his pace and he was not gonna slow down. I just had to hang on, right? And we take the last corner, and all you can hear is Rory O'Donnell screaming, that's them, or they're gonna make it, or something like that. And like this is at the finish line of a marathon. You can hear this one voice screaming. It was just a phenomenal time. Absolutely raised the bar on marathon running for me.
And how close
How do you
was it?
top that?
What was the crossing time?
3:24, 3:24:35. So I made it by about 30 seconds.
Oh,
wow.
gosh.
But the BQ, you need to be fastest qualifier first. I didn't make the cut.
So you still weren't? Were you sure then you were going to make it then, because with the potential?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
I did. So I didn't get in that year. I didn't get to run that year. But the next year, I just kept getting a few minutes off. And, in 2015, I ran a 3:17, which was 8 minutes under. And so I got in for 2016.
John, looking at that now with the running coach head on you, how much of a marathon do you tell your athletes and stuff is mental? Because you said that, like, obviously you had in the legs, but the guys are literally carrying you over the line. And is that part of you wants to quit and those pace? Like, you're not quitting today, pal.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is something that's a really, really big part of my coaching philosophy, is the mental game, right? In the last 3 weeks, we really picked that up. We're talking about mantras. We're talking about, visualizing success. We're talking about, self-belief, that positive self-talk, all of these things, that can be the difference between running that BQ, running that sub 3, or missing it by 30 seconds, just, forget the last book I read from a coach. It was something like, self-belief has made so many world records. It's just that little thing that the guy behind him didn't take part of in their training, right? And whatever. You look at golfers and you look at rugby players and footballers, and they stand over the shot for whatever, a minute, 30 seconds, and they've played that shot 100 times before they actually swing or kick or anything. And it just proof positive that the mental game is so important in anything, right? So I do bring that to my coaching as well. Yeah.
John, before we get into 2016, you're doing the Boston Marathon, you finished it. You're a New England man. Like, it's it is the big, unless you're doing the Olympics, it's the biggest marathon in the world. Like, for a lot of people, that's the peak. Like, where do you go from that? Like, that's you've qualified for Boston, you finally got there, you did the marathon. Like, when you do that, it's like, what's next? Like, is it just try to get back to Boston again and chase that feeling, or what were you feeling at that time?
Good question. Yeah, it was phenomenal. I would put Boston up there as probably my favorite marathon. There's a few in that kind of category. I think I had a pretty good run. I think I ran, I don't know, 3:14 or something like that. I think I had a decent run. But yeah, I don't know. It was real special to be around, family and friends. Have you guys run Boston?
Oh God, no.
No, right.
No, I'd probably qualify to drive the go-kart at the back. John.
We've heard stories about it. We watched the Mark Wahlberg movie on Patriots Day, and that's the closest we got to the Boston Marathon.
It's in Boston. The city of Boston owns that race, right? When somebody sees you and they know you ran the marathon, you are a celebrity. You're treated like a celebrity, right? You go into a pub and you're wearing your medal, they're going to buy you drinks, right? It's just, you are an absolute celebrity. People will stop you on the street. They'll stop you, anywhere, and they'll say, "Did you run the marathon?" Right? They just want to tell you what they think of you. It is. I've never experienced anything like it. It's weird. It's, how Americans tend to have that, they're way too friendly. Like, just back off, man. It's like that by 10 times worse.
You didn't get
I'm
at the
gonna
end of
bring-
Longford, no?
I'm gonna
No,
bring. I'm gonna
yeah, I
bring
got
John's,
a
I'm
loaf.
gonna bring John's Longford medal to Boston and see if I can get it.
I got a loaf of bread.
Oh, that's more than most. That's all right.
There's eating and drinking in that, John.
What's that?
There's eating and drinking in a loaf of bread.
There
Sure, I'll
is,
keep it going.
there absolutely is. Yeah.
So
Oh.
when you look at that, you know, like, and to go back to Sean's question, that is the peak. What do you do after that? Was it a case of how many more can I do, or are there any ones that tickled your fancy afterwards? What keeps you
Yeah.
going when you've been from the high of what is such a fantastic race?
I kind of, I don't know, I had it in my head to do more of the majors. Yeah, I can't really recall what my thinking was after that. London was on the cards, but I effect that up a few times with, because the London qualifying for me was a little bit easier. It was 5 minutes less, right? Or 5 minutes more. I had more of a window, I think. And it was guaranteed at the time. It's not anymore, but at the time, if you ran a London qualifier, you were in. Now, yeah, so just for the UK and Irish residents, right? Not for the rest of the world. We were kind of fortunate like that. But I messed up my entry. You know, you get a invite, you qualify, you apply, they say, okay, we accept. Do you want it? But I never replied to the one that said, do you want it? So I had to kind of rework that. And for me, it was at that point, I was actually chasing times. I wanted to keep getting better. It was probably soon after Boston. I'm like, yeah, I could possibly break 3. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. So probably give it a go. Yeah.
And everything went swimmingly from those years on afterwards, John. You broke 3 hours. There's
Absolutely.
nothing. That's the end of the story, right?
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Great. We'll send you a loaf of bread, John, for taking part.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was a few hiccups in there, right? So that was 2016. So 2017, I'm like, yeah, let's go for. I didn't get my place in London, so I'm like, all right, let's do Manchester. Has a great reputation. Yeah, let's go. Absolutely, give it a good rattle. You know, I was doing all the right things. At this point, I had earned my coaching qualification, and I'm like, I'm really putting all of the pieces together. I'm learning so I'm a real numbers nerd, and if you asked me what I had for breakfast in April 14th, 2010, I could probably look it up and tell you, right? And like, I have all these notes and spreadsheets from all the marathons I've run. And so I started looking what works, what doesn't work. And I'm like, all right, let's do this. And I put a plan together for Manchester and started working, doing some strength and conditioning, some cross training. And the winter of 2016-17, I was really starting to feel like I was putting it together, and gearing up for Manchester. And then
And then.
So I had just started a new job as an IT manager at a local company as a contract position, and so it was a bit tenuous, I suppose, anytime you're in a contract work. And so I would get up early, 5:36, go up into the attic and do some weightlifting. I'd do some, a different body part every day of the week. So I was up there Monday through Friday. And this one day in February, miserable. I'm not sure if you've been to Fermanagh before, but it just rains all the time. It's cold and wet, and February is lovely, right? But I'm up in the attic. I start working out. I do put just the bar on the bench just to warm up, 20 reps of that. And then, I don't have real expensive kit, right? So I've got this bench that you have these pins that you put into the uprights so that the weights don't fall when you put the plates on.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this pin and I'm trying to put it in the hole. There's a lot of innuendo there, but I just kept dropping it, right? I just drop it. And at one point, I don't even think I could pick it up with my left hand. I pick it up, my right, put it in. All right, that's in. Go around to the other side, and I try to put the 10-kilo plate on the other side, and dropped it. It's like 6 a.m, right? And this part of the attic is over all of the kids in my wife's bedroom.
This is where the 5-star frog splash is coming from the other half.
Yeah.
Bomb territory now, John.
Absolutely. And so it's a massive crash, right? And I'm like, oh shit, you're gonna be pissed. And nothing. Nobody said a word, nothing. So I'm like, all right. I walk around and I try to pick it up and I fall flat on my face. And I'm like, this is weird, right? I'm dropping things and I'm falling. So I get up and I stumble and I fall again. And I'm like, oh, what's funny is I remember this, right? I remember it clear as day. And I'm like, just exhausted. I'm like, I'm just going to just put my head down, right? Just going to put my head down. Never thinking there was a problem, right? I just thought maybe I just needed a wee kip, right? No clue. No clue. And so, this is the age ahead of Fitbit.
Plate as a pillow.
Yeah. Well, usually when I can't get in the hole, I just go for a little kip as well. I'm just
try again later.
Yeah. So I had my Fitbit started, and I was doing a workout on it, and I didn't stop it yet. I just put my head down.
And the nap as a recovery.
Yeah. This is the only reason I know kind of the timeline is because of the Fitbit, right? So I wake up, I kind of come to, and I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna work out today. I'm not gonna go back to bed, right? So I kind of just try to get up, and I couldn't get up, and I just dragged myself over, and is just halfway. So we didn't have even stairs to the attic. We just had a ladder and an access panel, right? And halfway to the access panel is a little table. I had my phone there that I, whatever. And so I kind of crawled over there, got the phone, and I'm calling my wife. I'm like, I don't think I can get down, right? So I phoned my wife. And she didn't answer. So I tried one of the boys or my daughter. I'm like, nobody answered, right? So I kept ringing. And eventually my wife pops her head up, right? And she's like, she looks at me and she's like, say something. And I'm like, what do you want me to say? And I don't know exactly what the words were or what I looked like. And she's like, whoa, like my whole left side was down, and I was slurring and I couldn't do anything. So I honestly didn't think there was a problem. I'm like, this is crazy. I feel fine, right? I feel absolutely fine. She got my oldest boy was over in Manchester at uni, but my next oldest boy was in bed, and he came out and he helped me down the ladder. And I'm trying to convince my wife that I need to get ready for work. And she's trying to convince me, no, we need to get you in an ambulance, right? So she eventually talked me around. She's like, well, just go get you checked and then you can go to work. So the ambulance met us in a town, because we were living 5 miles outside of 5 Mile town, right? In the middle of the Fermanagh countryside. It was like nothing there. And she's like, it would be more effort to try to explain to an ambulance driver where we are. So she's like, I'll just throw you in the car and we'll meet them halfway. So she phoned the ambulance, said, we'll meet you at Maguire's Bridge. made the transfer in the miserable cold. Like the rain in Fermanagh is as cold as I've never ever heard the likes of it. It's awful. Anyway, I digress. They get me in the ambulance, take me to the hospital, and I'm coming around. I can talk. I'm okay. Heart rate's fine. They're like, Enniskillen had at the time, maybe still do, one of the top stroke wards in all of the UK and Ireland, just top notch, right? A guy by the name of Professor Kelly, he's fantastic. He was there, and he's like, "We're gonna send you in for a." We got all kinds of ECGs and these brain scans and everything, and they got one. The first one came back, yeah, there's something there, something not right. So they sent me back in for another one that had like a dye in it, so they could see, exactly what was going on. And while I was sitting in the waiting area for this ECG, no, it wasn't an ECG. It was some kind of MRI or something like that. It was a brain scan of some kind. I'm sitting in a wheelchair, and all of a sudden, everything just went on me. And I knew at this point I was having a stroke, right? And so I'm sitting in a wheelchair, and there's nobody near me, and I'm screaming, but all is coming out. Did you ever see the Munsters? And you heard a lurch, right? He's got this really kind of deep, guttural. This is what I felt like sounded like, but it was terrifying, right? There was nobody there, and you're dying, but you can't. Nobody can help you, right? So eventually, some guy comes walking by, and he's like, "Yeah, there's something drastically wrong with this weirdo." And they threw me up on a gurney, and Professor Kelly was there in a heartbeat, and he's like, he's having a stroke. Get the thrombolysis, which is, it kind of like clears all the clots immediately. He got that into me straight away, and the worst part of the whole thing was, instead of my arms dangling off the bed, they put my arm on my chest, my left arm, and I could see it, right? But it felt like a 10-ton weight on my chest, but I couldn't feel it at all. It was the worst feeling ever, right? So I'm like trying to yell at people to get that thing off of my chest, because it's just awful. Like, you think you're having a stroke, and the only thing you can think about is get that arm off my chest, but that is it, right? Right. So yeah, that was it. It turned out that I had been living with an 11 mil hole in my heart since I was born, and that's what caused it.
Wow.
So
Long story short,
weightlifting almost killed you, but running saved your life. So
yeah.
This is stop saying
Don't put that on weightlifting now. No, you're doing the empty bar on a 10-kilo plate. No, put it back on my field. That one. I'm not taking that.
Yeah.
From this, where did it go? As in, because obviously finding out you've had this time bomb essentially since the time you've been young and you're getting by, and how do you process that, and where do you go from here?
Yeah, it was really hard. It was really hard. I have to, had the best care I could have ever hoped for. It was amazing. Like the cardiologist, Dr. Monahan, was fantastic. Like, she's just top of her field as well. But in the months after that, it was really, really hard. Like, part of the reason I think I wrote the book, and part of the reason I talk so much about this, is because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding maybe about what a stroke is, because you see people that are walking with a limp or can't use their left side or slur their speech, but a stroke is a brain injury, right? And for 6 months after that, I genuinely couldn't put 5 words together without, I really struggling to put words together. And I was forced to go. I wasn't forced. I went back to work 2 weeks after I got out of the hospital because, first of all, it was a contract position, and I it was important that I kept that position. There was no sick leave on a contract job, right? So I'm like, 2 weeks was not near enough because I'm sitting in meetings and I'm, a director would ask me a question and I'd be, see like The Simpsons when Homer's just staring at somebody, right? They're having a conversation and he's just
the
staring
monkey
at them.
just doing that.
I'm like, I just felt like the biggest moron, right? I couldn't get words put together. And like, it was like trying to start an engine in the middle of, trying to start a 1950s engine in the middle of winter, right? It just doesn't, it takes like 18 tries. I just couldn't get words out, right? It was really hard. And I suffered depression. I suffered bouts of rage just for the littlest things. It was really hard. And that's what a stroke does to somebody, right? I was okay. I could walk fine, pretty much. I could use everything. I wasn't able to do any real strength work or anything, but pretty quickly after I got out, the doctors were like, "Yeah, you can start running again. Maybe not push it too hard until we fix the heart." But yeah, it is, the mental part of it was so hard. It was such a difficult thing.
So obviously body function normal, but that element of speech and everything, cognitively you were like, I want to say this. And when you try do it, that's when there was a breakdown. So that's obviously vitally frustrating, like trying to tell someone to do something and not listen. Like, how long did this go on for?
It was a good 6 months. It was, do you know something? The day it cleared, it was unbelievable. It was, I can't even explain it. It was like
just one day.
It was, I woke up one morning and it was, believe it or not, it was pouring rain in Fermanagh, right? And it was pitch dark out. It must have been, I don't know, it was early in the morning. And I just remember opening the back door and looking outside, and I was like, oh my God, like everything was crystal clear. Now, it wasn't, because I still struggle, right? But comparatively, it was like somebody turned the lights on. It was amazing. It was, you talk about that feeling of finishing a marathon. This was like 10 times better. It was like almost reborn, right? It was amazing.
John was thinking about giving out to the wife, and it actually came out. He got caught rotten. And everyone looked past it because it was a magic moment.
It's a miracle. I can give out again. I can say what's on my mind. Wait, it's a curse.
From there, John, then obviously that was obviously one of your biggest barriers. From there, it was a pathway back to recovery and progression from there back into running, I hope, and a few other things.
Yeah, so I actually ran Dublin that year.
That year?
2000, what year? 17, 16, 17. Yeah, 2017. I ran Dublin that year. I ran, actually, if you count the virtual COVID ones, I ran Dublin 10 years running. I didn't miss one. But that one was, it was, I was on pacing duties, right? So I didn't go for any time or anything. I was helping somebody else. It's fantastic. But I did it because I knew I had surgery coming up in November. So that was to repair the hole in my heart.
You still had the hole in your heart.
Yeah.
And you ran the marathon. Did you get surgery afterwards?
Yeah. So they put me on blood thinners and statins. So there was zero risk of the same thing happening again.
We did Dublin the same year, and we took about 6 hours. And you did it with a hole in your heart pacing someone else. Now, what does that say about us, Sean?
It says move on, Eric.
Oh my God. Next question, Sean, please.
Sean, I said at the very start, for a spoiler for people that can remember the very start of this podcast, in the intro, you are a sub 3 hour marathon runner. And you did Boston, we talked about, you did 3:14. You're not quite at sub 3 hour. And then you get through the surgery and all the rest in 2017. You build on, you end up going back to London. You're constantly, not only did you get back, you're constantly getting faster and faster at this point.
Yeah. So I joke that is because, so to fix the heart, they put a 15 mil piece of nickel titanium mesh that covers the hole, and then your tissue grows over it, and then it's like you've got a brand new heart. So I've kind of got 48 years of instant repair work done, right? So it's like I was running compromised running for that long, and now I've got a completely repaired heart, and I've no doubt that was a big thing. I'm now running a lot more efficiently, that it's working a lot better. Almost immediately, well, no, the first marathon after that, after the surgery, was the following spring or summer. We did the Great Western Greenway, the Ackle to Westport. Awful. Really, it was a great marathon. And you know what? If marathons are 24 miles, I might have won that one, but it was, I just crashed big time, which really put confidence in all of my friends and family that this was a great thing to do. Didn't work out very well, but it was soon after that when I actually started training again. I was banging out, 3:15, I think, or 3:16 in Exeter, then a 3:06 in Chester, and a 3:06 the same couple of weeks later in Dublin. So things were really starting to work out nicely. As a matter of fact, you know what? I absolutely loved all of your stuff about Donadia, because in 2020, I did Donadia, and actually won. 2019, I did Donadia, and a friend of mine won the over 50s category, and he ran like a 3:40 something.
Wow.
And then in 2020, I went, he was a club mate, he was an Enniskillen guy, and then Michael Walsh, and then I went in 2020 again, and I won the over 50s in 3:50, right? But in 2020, that was February of 2020, in March, everything got locked down, right? So I ended up, I think, 12th or 13th in the world for the 50K in my age category.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So here, I got that, and can't take that away, right?
No, you absolutely cannot. That's a stat that stands up.
But so then we had the whole COVID thing, and that was kind of a nightmare. Then I tore both adductors in 2021, so that was a write-off year. But 2022, I put a good training block in for Manchester, and I ran 3:00.
Wow.
Which is every runner's favorite number, right? And then I knew I had it, right? At that point, you have it. So I went to Kildare, and I did the Thoroughbred Marathon that June, and I ran a 2:58.
That's a enough one. And there's nothing there in Kildare in terms of support or anything like that. I've done it once.
No, you know what? I got in with a couple of guys. So there was a small field, right? And it is dead quiet on the roads. But three of us, John Scott from Longford and Mark Rowley, I think he's from Kildare. Could be wrong. Maynooth, maybe. I'm not sure where he's exactly from, but two fantastic guys. And we ran 25 miles shoulder to shoulder, helping each other out, picking each other up, do you need water? Do you need anything? It wasn't a race, right? And then at mile 25, John Scott pulled ahead and Mark dropped back a little bit, but it was such a fantastic experience, right? So that was 2:58, and it was superb. Loved every minute of it. And a big learning. Every one of these is a big learning experience, right? And I brought that in. 23, I ran London in 2:56, and then 24, I ran Manchester in 2:54, and I've been struggling since. So,
John, it has to come a point, like, I know age is just a number and all the rest, and I'm not feeling that right now. A few hours away from my 38th birthday, and there's a couple of things going on in my life that's making me feel a lot older and more mature. Not more mature, I should feel more mature and everything else going on. At 48, you had the heart surgery. I know, right? Oh, Eric's got a few years a little bit younger than me, but I'm feeling very old right now. Full head of hair and all the rest he's got going on him.
That's a lot of candles, Sean. Hold on,
I know, right? Get more candles for me. Go straight to Team Move for that, because you wouldn't pay anyone else for candles for me. But 48, you have the surgery, you have the stroke, everything's going on. Yeah. You've got 314, Martin, around that. And then you had the 15 millimeter titanium in you, and not all of a sudden, obviously you put the work in, you're back down, you get your 306s, your 3 hour in Manchester 2:56. From a running coach perspective, when does the age come, do you think, for people where you hit near your peak and you feel like it's going to be okay, no matter what I do, I'm going to get a bit slower? Because in most other sports, it's your 30s. It's like late 20s, 30s. Some athletes are getting near 40s. Your Ryan Giggs and your neck of the woods, your Tom Brady's of the world. But it's 40s and that's it. Yeah, you're at 48. You've go through all this, and all of a sudden you are getting faster out of it. Is that an anomaly, or is that someone that people can train and work to?
I speak Sean. He's hoping he gets faster after 40.
That's what I'm getting to. Yeah, a long way. Is there hope for me and Eric? And bear in mind, I'm feeling very fragile right now.
48.
I think Tommy Hughes has given us all hope, right? But for me, I ran my fastest at 55. It's just a matter of you always get a lot of this, influencer stuff saying, when you hit your 40s, when you hit your 50s, you need to change your training. You need to, recover a little bit better. I probably trained harder at 55 than I did at 45, right? It's just training smarter. Knowing your body, knowing yourself, knowing the athlete is hugely important. And the biggest thing that I have done, and the biggest thing that I bring to my coaching, is make the simple things easy, right? We know simple does not always mean easy, but the trick is to make the simple things easy, right? So make the nutrition easy. It's not hard to go out and run a 10-mile tempo, but it's simple. You just go out and you do it, right? But it isn't easy, right? Make it easy, right? It's not hard to eat right? But it isn't easy if you don't plan, if you don't, if you stock the shelves with brownies and cookies and biscuits and cake, right? Or you can make it easy. Just for me, if I write down what I'm going to eat during the course of the day, right? Just write it down. I'm more apt to stick to that, and I'm more apt to make a good decision. Strength and conditioning. I do 20 minutes every day, right? 20 minutes of body weight exercise. So I was saying this at the NI running show. For me, that means I'm doing 100 push-ups every morning, right? That's 500 push-ups a week. That's 2,000 push-ups a month. And over the course of a 4-month training block, that's 8,000 push-ups, right? That stacks, and that's easy. 20 minutes, nobody's going to say, oh, I don't want to do my workout today, because, it's 20 minutes and it's body weight. I don't have to go anywhere to do that. It's putting these things into place to make it the simple things easy was what has worked for me more than anything. And I try to instill that in my athletes. I don't like complicated sessions, right? Some of these guys, and this isn't a criticism of any particular coach, but you will see some athletes are given these just really complicated, they have to take 20 minutes to put it on their watch and get it right. And, it's like, there's no magic pill to training. You just put in the work, right? It just doesn't have to be overly complicated. And that has worked for me over these last years. As I get older, I just make it as simple as I can. And it has been successful.
I've seen on Instagram one of your recent ones was your favorite session is just 1K intervals, and then the mad thing about it, well, not the mad thing about it, the one way in here was you changed the recovery based on the type of athlete that could be doing it. So someone that could be doing like a high rocks is just 60, 90 seconds just standing, and if someone's doing a marathon, I could be wrong what the marathon was, maybe a 400-meter jog or something like that before going again, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so exactly. It depends on the athlete, right? Some people. The other thing is when you're dealing with individuals, people are people, and if you're giving an athlete something that they just hate doing, they're not going to get the most out of it, right? So you kind of, I like to tweak it a little bit to make it easy, not hard. It still needs to be hard work, but it needs to be easy to go and do it, right? So if you see something on your training block that you absolutely hate, you'll be nervous, you'll be kind of worked up about it the whole week. But if it's something that, is kind of like in your wheelhouse, you can do it well, you're going to go out and you're going to smash it, and you're going to get the adaptation that you need, or that what the coach is looking for out of that session, as opposed to something that they don't want to do. So yeah, there's certainly ways to pull a different lever for a different athlete when it comes to the same session. Yeah.
John, when you talk to your athletes about maybe what they did before, let's say, or maybe even it is previous coaching, what is there things that keep constantly coming up that people get wrong? Is it overtraining, under recovery? Is it just doing hard all the time, or too much the same thing all the time? Is there a pattern that you're constantly seeing?
There is, yeah. There certainly is. But there's kind of categories, right? There's categories. There's the people that you talk about doing everything hard. I always say the faster you want to run, the bigger the gap between your slow, easy runs and your fast, hard runs needs to be. That's the best method, is to give yourself the opportunity. Otherwise, you're not getting as high as you can get. You're kind of just skimming across, and plateauing a little bit. So that big gap between the fast pace and the slow pace, you get people that just don't recover, full stop. They just don't, on a rest day, they'll go doing, 4 hours in the gym doing weights, and, whatever, the people that type of person that they think, I'm just not doing enough. I'm not doing enough, when actually they're doing way too much. But I would say that that's probably the two most common ones that I see, are the people that don't rest at all, and the people that don't have that big gap between the fast and the slow. Like for a new runner, that gap might be tiny, right? It might be tiny between their long, slow run and their, interval sessions. But if you're looking to get faster and faster and faster, and the faster you want to run, that gap needs to be bigger.
John, what is achieverunningclub.com?
So my wife and I started Achieve because we really are passionate runners, as you can probably tell, and we want to make it available to everybody. We keep trying to tell people, get every runner. If every runner gets another runner or two runners or non-runners to start, the world would be a better place, right? And so Achieve is all about...
the same thing about the podcast, John. Just one
There
more,
you go, yeah.
just one more listener.
Well, I don't know. I may have dropped a few for you. I don't know. You probably lose a few.
Absolutely not.
But Achieve is really about spreading the benefits of running. I've done a bunch of updates recently about, recipes and bringing the food aspect and nutrition into it. We have free plans, we have paid plans, we have, plans for people that are looking to lose weight, like myself. We have mindset activities. It's really encompassing all of the things that we have learned over the years and trying to spread that out to as many people. So we try to get 2 or 3 blog articles out every week, and really just, spread anything we can to more and more people. And that's what Achieve is all about.
And there's only so much we could touch in your story within an hour on a podcast. So where could people get your book, John?
At the minute, Heart for Running is on Amazon. It's on amazon.ie, amazon.co.uk, amazon.com. We recently just changed the cover, and I don't even have a copy of it because we just did it on Friday. So it doesn't have my ugly mug on it.
Coffee? This is an old copy you gave us. This is not John.
Nobody wants to see my face, right?
Don't worry, John. Sean's pretending he can read. Don't worry about it. I hope it's a picture book.
Brilliant.
I walked into that one.
2 pages blank you can colour in on the plane to Barcelona.
Well, I'm getting abuse off Eric, and I better go get a good night's sleep. So I'm probably going to get abuse off you come this weekend with the Barcelona Marathon, because we finished a good 2-3 hours before me at this stage where I'm going. So
can't
John,
wait. Yeah, that's going to be so good.
Absolutely. The best of luck with AchieveRunning.com, AchieveRunningClub.com, your own website, jmruncoach.com as well, the book and everything else that goes with it. And the best luck on Sunday with the Barcelona Marathon. We'll be sure to catch up with you at that stage.
Brilliant. Can't wait. It's going to be whatever the time is, but it's going to be a blast. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah.
You're going to be a few points deep before you see us. And on that note, thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. For myself,
thanks so much, guys.
John and Eric. Take care.